welcome to Mission West Virginia. I'm Rachel Kinder, your host, Frameworks Director at Mission West Virginia, and today my guest is Matt McSweeney with NECO. He's your licensing specialist, correct?
That is what I'm doing.
Well, I am so glad you could join us today. We have a lot of things to talk about.
I think we probably could come up with a few things. Thanks for having me. This is our second time doing this, so I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while, a couple of years, I think. So could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background, what your degree is in, and how you found yourself in this line of work.
That's a loaded question there sometimes. So I've been with NECO for 11 years. My background came from college way back in the day of getting my bachelor's in had it in education. So I used to be in school systems.
Okay.
So I stepped out of that and just found this place. My degree's in education and health and human services. And strangely enough, one day I went to a dinner and somebody asked me if I knew about NECO. And I was like, I sure do. They were from my hometown. That's where it started in South Point, Ohio. So I'd always known of our CEO, Bo, and the family and knew what they stood for. And I just took a chance and went to an interview, and they haven't gotten rid of me yet.
11 years later.
11 years later, yeah. Prior to that, I was doing drug and alcohol counseling for kids that were in the judicial system in Southern Ohio. When we do counseling, I worked with them when they were in their placements. So kind of transferred out of that and moved over into this. Always been around kids. I coached and taught and did all that. So it's just kind of a gradual progression, I think, more so than just really choosing a path. I think the path kind of chose me.
And you said you had been in a couple different positions with NECO. So can you tell us what you do now as a licensing specialist, what that means?
Sure. So as a licensing specialist, what my job and what our team in our office out of Barboursville, Huntington area, there's 6 of us, and our job is to recruit families because of the need that we have to have. We could open 30 homes a day and it'd still be short on what we really need.
Truth.
So we're in charge of recruiting, marketing, and then we get the families into training courses, and we work with them and teach them to prepare them as well as we can to deal with children coming into their home, whether it's a kinship placement, which is something that they're already related to or already know about, or maybe they're just taking a chance and saying they're wanting to bring kids into their home and change those kids' lives. But we have and all of our stuff that we do at our office is very state regulated, so we're going through state standards with training. We have background checks. We have home visits to where we get to know people. We have in-person classes. We have online classes. We have a lot of things that is required for the family, but it's a great checks and balances. It's just vetting the process and making sure, and we have a great team of 6 people there in Huntington, let alone with all of our other offices in the state that are constantly recruiting and training. That's what we do.
And so a lot of times when people ask about the process, I say it's about 4 to 6 months.
Well,
but I say it can vary. If you're really on your game, you can do it faster.
Yes.
But I think sometimes people get a little overwhelmed. Like, that's a whole lot.
They sure
Here
do.
I am trying to do something helpful to you, and you want me to do all of these things.
Yes, there is a lot, and 4 to 6 months is it's when you look at it in certain ways, that seems like a very long time. But when you're stressed and you're going through the daytime and the rigmarole of doing everything you need to, sometimes it takes that long. But we can get families open as fast as they're willing to do the work. We have a new online system. It's called Benti, that they can go in and upload everything, and they type, and it's really, we want them to feel comfortable with their walk. It's their choice. It's their time. This is a big undertaking into the lives of the family and the kids. We can move a little faster if it is a kinship, if they already have the child in the home, because there's things that makes it easier. But for a family just to come in, it could take 3 months. There's been families that we've had that's not wasted, but waited a year, and they've done these things, and it's like, okay, here they are. Now they're ready, they're open, and now they're excited. So we don't really like to put a time frame on it, but we can get them open as fast as they're willing to, or let them take their time.
I do try to encourage people when they call my office. I say, if you're really on it, if you do your paperwork, you get your references, it can move faster.
Yes.
But they do have to complete training, and I know that you shared that as soon as we are done with this, you're off to teach a training class.
I got one tonight, a little uplifting trauma class, and how to help deal with those children when they come into the home as well as they can. So yeah, so we're always training. We have, we'll train in the day. We have a lot of evening classes. We try to do at least once a quarter. We'll have Saturday classes, you know, in the morning or whatever. Or sometimes, you know, just whatever the family does. If we have to, we'll go into the home and teach some classes if they need to.
That's what I hear.
So it's customer service. You know, that's what every organization I feel like should be really willing to do, because what we only offer families is the ability to say, you know, yes or no to a child when they get that phone call, and then give that customer service. That's what this whole thing's about, having the ability to help these families and these kids.
So tell me about that. So I've gone through your whole process, and you said, I've got your home certified, you're open.
Okay.
How does that work? Do I have to take any kid you place in my home?
Well, we have some that will. They'll give a try for anyone. They'll say, hey, send me those children. We'll take care of them. We'll do what we can. So, you know, it's one of those things. I try to be very open and transparent with our families and let them know that, you know, just because I call you does not mean you have to say yes. It's great if you do, but there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of things that, you know, might not fit into your schedule, might not fit into your home, might not fit into your wheelhouse, because there's different behaviors that some people are really good at taking care of, and sometimes they're not. So what we do is, we're lucky enough in our Huntington Barbersville office we have, you know, 145 plus homes open right now. So if I call you and you're like, nah, that one doesn't fit, we're automatically thinking and going to that next family and calling them and giving them the opportunity. We're also very lucky to not only have Huntington and Barbersville, but we have 6 other offices throughout the state that covers 50 plus of the counties, and there's only 55. We don't have a lot of representation there in that Eastern Panhandle, but we have offices that, you know, maybe a kid can't fit here, but they can fit in our Logan office. They can fit in our Fairmont office. They can fit in our Elkins and Elkview office. So we have a lot of opportunities to be able to do those things.
So I know that before you were a licensing specialist, you were a case manager, and I think that that might be one of the pieces that people kind of don't understand. So I'm all certified, and I said yes to a placement, and now there are kids in my home.
Yes.
What is your job as a case manager at that point?
To control the chaos. No, to help. Basically, I tell all of our case managers, and when I was one many moons ago, you know, you're there as a concierge for the family. You know, if you open up and you take a child, and I'm assigned to your home as a case manager, I'm the person you want to call. I'm the person that wants to be there for you. I'm there to help take care of the kids and take care of you as well as you can. Sometimes it's just having conversations.
Right.
You know, we're going to help you find services that you may need for child care. You might need a service for birth to 3, which is an amazing service to help take care of the children under the ages of 3 in the home to make sure they're meeting developmental milestones. We'll connect you to that. You know, if you need help getting into a doctor's office or a dentist office, you know, we can help make calls too. You know, sometimes the families, if you've never had a child in your home, you don't know what to do. They don't give you a real big manual on that, you know. So we're basically it's a concierge service. What do you need? Call us. When do you call us? Whenever. We
24/7, right?
24/7. We are available one way or another. Case managers, we do like for them to go home every once in a while and spend time with their family and friends.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. But if they do go home, and like say if I am your case manager and I'm not on call, we have an on-call worker that's going to be there from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. and over the weekends. So then that way we always have somebody stepping up to be ready to handle if there's an emergency or a crisis or a need or a want. We're there 24 hours a day.
So say I get a placement, they're pretty low need, everything's going really smoothly. You're still coming to my house, right?
I will still come to your house. Minimum, usually we try to do every 2 weeks, every 2 visits. You know, 2 visits a month minimum. That's what the state standard is. But dealing with children who may have some extraordinary needs or behaviors or things, we'll amp that up. There's tier levels. You have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, based on, you know, degree of, you know, where they might be just physically sick. They might be, you know, having some behaviors. So we tier the children to a level to where you might need us to come by once a week.
Right.
You might need us out there 3 times a week. That's kind of that's the nature of the beast. We kind of gauge it and see, and we'll get there as much as we need. You know, we have some families that we're like, we never hear from them, you know, except for those 2 visits, because they've, like you said, they've got it. And then there's some families that they'll call you every day at 7:30 in the morning because that's when their day starts.
Okay.
they're getting up, getting the kids on the bus, doing this, doing that, and it's, they're busy. And then sometimes they're not going to be able to call you until 10:30 at night because they've had the whole day to process and they need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. We're there for you whenever you need it.
So let's hit a couple myth busters that people think. Do I have to be married to be a foster parent?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Do I have to own my own home?
No, you don't.
What are some other? I know that I kind of dispel some myths pretty regularly. What are the ones you think you get the most that are just inaccurate?
You can definitely be single. You can be the lead approved caregiver in the home, and say if you are a single person, you decide, hey, it's time for me to bring somebody else into my life. Okay, well, we'll work with that. We'll get them certified as well. You can have two people living in the home that's not married. You can have two people living in the home that are married. We like for, of course, state standards say, you have to be 21 to open up and be a foster parent. Now, if you're 21 and maybe we're having a situation, or not a situation, but we have a thing now where, a 24-year-old's married to a 20-year-old. And that 20-year-old, they're going to be 21 soon. Okay. So we can go ahead and get the 24-year-old set up, and then when the 20 turns 21, then we're getting that going. So we have a wide array of families and different types of makeups in our home. We're really an organization that is open to many different types of individuals and personalities. So, there's myths, but if somebody has a myth, you just have to call and let us bust it.
We really want to get the word out about what is accurate about who can qualify. So this is the time of year that is full of joy and Christmas cheer and stress.
Stress, yes.
So
money and bills and all that stuff.
I know that my office lobby is full of Christmas stockings. We picked up, I think, over 300 this week.
Awesome.
So it's pretty awesome, all the people that want to come together and help out our kids. But it's also stressful, making sure that we are getting kids what they've asked for and that they feel seen at Christmas time. Can you tell me, what does that look like at NECO?
So right now at NECO, we are really opening up the ideas of what we can do to get kids gifts. Now, our families, they do receive reimbursements, but gifts are expensive. Things are expensive nowadays. So we still want the kids to have the best Christmas available. Now, some families, they may pass on. They're like, no, we're good. So it gives us the opportunity to, maybe pass these gifts to other children. But what we're doing right now is we are on our Facebook page, on every one of them individually that you go to in the NECO in the state, they'll probably say, hey, you want to sponsor a child. We're not necessarily saying a child, but you can call in and ask for a child. We have these that are going on Christmas trees. So we have some Christmas trees in the area right now. We have it at Heritage Station down in Cabell, down in Huntington. It's at the Visitor Center. We're going to put one up in Valley Park this week. Because
they have all the trees there,
they're putting the trees there. We were going to go today. A little snow.
A little snowy today.
And then we're going to put one in the Mason City Park as well. So on those trees, we're putting a little NECO tag on here. And basically what it does is it has our individual address. And we have our contact, Lauren Herman, who is amazing. She's headed up these gift giving scenarios for the last probably 6, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. So she has kept a list. We've sent out, with our case manager, have taken out a list and able to get these kids to really write down what they're looking for. And some of the answers on there are so amazing and sweet, but also sad too. Yeah. You feel some of these things. We had a kid that asked for a cookbook because they wanted to know how to feed themselves.
Gosh.
We had a kid that just asked for somebody to send him a Christmas card. And then we had a friend to play with.
Oh, wow.
And those are things that I think a lot of us take for granted. And we understand that there's a lot of needs everywhere. But these kids, to be able to go and grab one of these and help somebody out in any way, shape, and form. You could pick a young child, you can pick a teen. It's not that we're saying, hey, you got to give this or that. But if you can grab it and let us know, we'll find something for you to do. That's not just with our kids. That's not with our kids in care, but we also have an independent living program.
Tell me more about that, because I am not as knowledgeable as I want to be on that.
So the independent living program is still through our NECO, and what that is a setup to where children that are 18 plus, 18 to 21, can continue getting services from the state, getting assistance, and they're living in their own spot. NECO has gone out and found places, procured places for them to live in.
Okay.
They pay their rent, they do, things like that. But these kids, they're given a reimbursement per month too.
And that's how they pay that rent.
And it gets a little bit expensive. So, we've had some kids, we have 20 kids in care that are 18 and over, and, they need Christmas food. Some of them have children in their home already, and they're going to school and they're working, and they, we've had kids be like, hey, can we get cat food? Can we get dog food?
Yeah.
Can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? So there's a need for that as well. So, I knew I was getting older when I appreciated getting like laundry detergent and those gifts that you'll use. I was like, oh, okay, this is great. But this is what these kids are looking for too. We've got kids on the little end looking for these sweet little things. Some of them still want the PlayStations and the Xboxes.
Right.
But then we have these independent living kids that are also looking for, some things to fill their home with as well.
My grandparents used to buy us paper towels by the case.
Aye.
And that was when I was in college, that was a great present.
And it is. It's amazing, It's funny what how we think about that stuff now.
So, do these kids are they living by themselves? Is it more of a group setting?
They are living by themselves. So
Okay.
they're by themselves, or like I said, if they have their own child, the child's there with them.
Okay.
They are given it's a case manager, someone like an independent life skills coach that comes by and checks on them and is also kind of their concierge too, because they're like, hey, can you help me with do this? And we have two people in our office, Kalia and Tony, who are amazing. They're jump through hoops to take care of these kids. Like, I got to go. I got to handle this kid. I got to help with this kid. They need this. They need that. So we do have kind of a case management type scenario for them. So they have somebody to call as well.
I imagine there are a lot of life skills that have to be quickly learned once you're living on your own, even with support.
Yes.
So that's
It's a lot of
great.
things they don't teach you, So it's
They
like,
do not.
And that's something that we try to tell our foster parents, when they have kids in the home. And I'm sure you shared that you have a younger child, and there's probably some times where they want to help, and you're like, no, let's I got this. And then they get older and they're like, wow, man, I don't even know how to do this. I don't know how to work thermostat. I don't know how to mow grass. I don't know how to do that stuff we take for granted because we're going to have these kids, hopefully as long as we can, but sometimes those foster kids are only in just for a short amount of time.
Right.
And to really give them the opportunity to succeed if they go back home or wherever they go next, we got to teach them. We're always got to be working with them. Always got to be showing, being a role model and those things for those kids.
Because most of us get more of a transition period. So you might move out on your own, but you might call your mom or your dad every day.
I still call my mom
Right.
every day.
So I want to backtrack a little bit to what
Okay.
you said at the beginning. So NECO was founded in South Point, Ohio?
Come out of South Point, Ohio. Yes, it was
Okay.
Ed and Dorothy Necco started the process, and their son Bo has taken it over. Our home office is in Cincinnati.
Okay.
We're in 5 states. We're in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, freshly new in Indiana, and we're in Georgia as well. So we got a little area to travel
Okay.
there. So been in those 5 states. We have 7 locations in West Virginia. We have our Barboursville, Huntington office. It depends where you're at, where you call it. So we have our Logan, which is our flagship. They were the first ones in West Virginia. We have Elkins. We have Elkview, which is Charleston, Elkview area. They're serving that area. And then we have Beckley, Parkersburg, and Fairmont. So we're all over the place.
You are. So you are a private company, and you have principles that kind of guide your work and your mission, right?
We do. We have a corporate culture that we really live by, which is very important to us. And then we have, when NECO was founded, Dr. NECO, Ed, he really kind of absorbed himself into a book that was written by Nicholas Hobbs. It was called The Troubled and Troubling Child. And inside of that, this book was written in 1982, so it's it's not that old.
Right.
Compared to, some of the theorists that we think back in the day with Freud and Bondurant and all those. So in this one, and I had no clue about it before I started working at NECO, and these Hobbs principles, there's 12 principles. And man, when you can really break them down, you can really, really, really start to work not only with the children, but I feel like it's made me a better person working with people and working with kids, because it really simplifies what these kids need when they're coming in. they've lived lives that we're not used to. They've lived differently, and sometimes that doesn't line up, when we're trying to deal with them or help a behavior or do this. But, with these Hobbs principles, we break them down, and it's a really good segue because, there's two of them that I've been thinking about with the holiday season,
Right.
which we've been talking about. So the first one, well, it's actually the last one. It's the 12th one, and it says that a child should know some joy every day.
Absolutely.
How often do we take that for granted?
Often,
Even
right.
with us, adults do it. But, you think about this holiday time, a child should know some joy. There's probably some kids that haven't got to go out and, probably could have made a good snowman today. But there's probably some kids that's never been able to do that or had anybody show them how to make a snowball. It's little things that we take so for granted and really trying to focus on this time of year, giving these children some type of joy. It's almost like a joy advent calendar. Let's focus on something every day. It doesn't have to be big.
Right.
It can be just something. It can be a high five. It can be a hug. These are things that kids have come into care that they've never really had from someone who's there to really protect them and care for them. So we're always thinking about joy during this time of year and how it's not always just about, hey, here's a big gift.
Right.
It's not about trying to buy that love. It's not
Right.
about trying to win them over. It's about being a better person towards these kids. It's about talking to them and listening to them and being a role model and all these things that are so important when we're working with our families, telling them these things. So it's all about joy. But the other one that I think sometimes people forget a little bit about during this year, and it's called, ceremony and ritual. It's talking about how that brings order and stability to a child's life or to a person's life. If you live in chaos, it's pretty crazy. We're not used to it. But these kids come in, and during this time of year, we got Thanksgiving coming up.
Right.
We can't skip Thanksgiving. So, but Thanksgiving is usually what? You're going into family settings, or you've got your traditions and your things. And we don't ask the kids that come in for foster care. We don't ask them, say, hey, how do you feel about going to dinner with 40 people that you
Right.
don't know?
Right.
Are you going to be able to handle that? Do you like turkey? Some of these kids have never had turkey.
Right.
Things that we take for granted. So this ceremony and ritual is very big for me because, if you have children who have had terrible times during the holidays,
High
terrible
stress times. I mean, adults are stressed about going to Thanksgiving dinner, right?
And sometimes we have families that make a lot of bad decisions during the holidays.
Right.
So if we have family members or these kids whose family members have gone to jail, if they've,
Right.
they've unfortunately stumbled into that, the drug episodes and things. This is really things that affect these kids during the holidays, and we're just like, hey, Santa Claus is coming. Imagine if you're a child who's been abused by someone that's in a Santa Claus costume. That's something that's going to come down the road. And then you see them, they see Santa come in, and they're scared to death. We need to do a better job of talking to these kids and realizing that, hey, we're not all the same. Maybe if I get you a gift, would you prefer to open it in private?
Right.
Would you prefer to not go see the lights at the, in the neighborhood that maybe you're not comfortable with? We have to have conversations. And that's why these principles are so important, because it opens up the ability to have conversations with kids who can obviously, conversate. If you got a 1-year-old or a newborn, they're going to go with you.
Right.
They might cry a little bit, but you get these 5, 6, 9, 10, 12, 15-year-old kids, got to talk to them. And I love the fact that these Hobbs principles open that up and open those lines of communication. And it should open up, hopefully, some vision for people to be like, okay, there is a different way to work with these children than what I'm used to or what I've done with my own kids. So that's really what we try to do.
I love that, and we do, hear from people this time of year that, maybe the kids don't know how to appropriately say thank you,
Sure.
and then they appear ungrateful, and it's like, well, they're not used to getting gifts. I also really love the foster and adoptive families that sit down with an older child and say, what's your favorite tradition?
Yes.
What did your family do? Can we
Yes.
incorporate that? I mean, I've heard stories about relatives calling and getting family recipes,
It's great when you can get that communication between a foster family and a biological family, it happens. And there's some great stories on that. But, if you don't have that connection with the biological family for the child, then, let them tell us,
Right.
let's do things for them. Maybe they don't want to do things, and that's okay too. I mean, I'm sure if I brought you a big gift or you brought me one right now and we're on TV, we'd be like,
It's a little awkward,
thank
right?
you. So like you nailed it on the head there, where you said, kids might seem ungrateful. We can't think about that because sometimes these kids have never gotten those things, or if they have, they don't have them 3 days after Christmas.
That's a big thing, is keeping their items. And, with one of our programs, we can't get the lists out of our kids. And we kind of had to sit down and say, what's going on? And, I think we have some particular kids that aren't used to being asked.
Exactly. They're not used to being asked. And then they're afraid if they do put something down and they get it, it's going to be taken away or pawned or, lost or just disappears, or they're promised that they're going to get it and they never do.
Yeah, a real fear of getting your hopes up
Sure.
and being disappointed. It's loaded. It's a loaded time for adults. So,
Yeah.
my gosh.
And that's one of the things. It's like it's like we do want to take some of the pressure off of the families, because when you have 3 new kids that show up, and we'll be taking gifts up until Christmas Day probably, because we may have a kid that comes into care Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And, just imagine that. I don't think any of us would really ever think about that. What's it like if you just get taken away from your family and put into another spot on Christmas Eve, on Christmas Day?
I've seen kids get placed on their birthdays. I've been a
Exactly.
CPS worker on call Christmas week. Yeah, that's when we really start to get stressed out. It's one thing for the kids we're planning to
Yeah.
provide for. It's another thing when Grandma takes in a kid on December 20th.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we're prepared. Hopefully, we're going to have enough. We have had some people. They donate. They donate their time. They donate their money. They donate the gifts. They're all going to be there. And some of them, if they're not used, we'll be here. You go. And if we have to, we'll be knocking on Walmart's door if it's closed to try to get some gifts for these kids.
We had volunteers in our office after hours yesterday sorting gifts, which I love, because it doesn't always have to be money or shopping. Sometimes you can really give your time.
Sure.
So we're ready for the holidays. We're getting there.
I haven't even started, but we're starting for these kids. That's what matters.
So we just have a few minutes left. Is there anything else you want to share about what's new with your agency, or something that you really feel like someone watching, needs to know?
It's just, we're always changing things at NECO. We're always trying to think outside the box. We're always looking to try to find new ways to recruit and get families. And, sometimes people are very nervous. We'll go set up at somewhere in the public, and they're very nervous to come up and talk to us.
Don't make eye
Yeah, it's
contact.
like, it's okay. And, I understand. Fostering's not for everybody.
It's
but
not.
Fostering could be for somebody that you know. And, if you make a connection with a NECO worker, or you see a kid that's been in foster care, whether they're with whatever agency, maybe that's something that, speaks to you, to talk to somebody else and just tell them to give us a call and to give it a try. We never ask for any money or anything like that. That's not what we're here for. There's not a obligation to the families to check it out, or to, hey, I know of an agency. I saw this. I saw the signs. Everybody tries to get their signs up here and there.
Yep.
and community events. You see those, and those are people that are giving their time to try to make a better life, not only for the foster kids, but for the foster families, because we really want them to be able to succeed and do well and really just have a good experience with this.
And it all just contributes to the betterment of our state.
Sure.
And that's what I tell people. It's foster families, it's kids in care, it's the biological families who can hopefully work a plan and have their kids returned. So I do think there are unique roles for each person, and not everyone can foster.
Exactly. And one thing we know about people in West Virginia is they're some of the most sweetest, helpful people around. And that's why we are very lucky to have as many kids in care as we do, because of the families that come out.
We have some great families. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Learned a lot today. Again, my guest was Matt McSweeney. He is a licensing specialist with NECO. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.